Hi, everyone. Welcome to LatProXperience, where we talk about entrepreneurial success through the Latino lens. My name is Antonio Muñiz, and I have an amazing guest with me today, Elizabeth Ortiz. Liz, how are you?
I'm so good, Antonio, and thank you for inviting me. This is so fun to always come in and chat with you.
Yeah, if you listen to what Liz just says, it's always fun. That means she's been here before. And if you don't know her, the easiest way to get a hold of her or get a little bit of her professional background and personal background, because we went deep last time we spoke, is to check out episodes 71 and 72. One is in English, one is in Spanish, for your viewing and listening pleasure. So listen, Liz, we catch us up a little bit. Tell me, remind everyone, who you are, what you do, what your company does, etc.
Sure. Liz Ortiz. I am the owner of KEM Business Solutions, and we offer bookkeeping and accounting services, advisory services for small to mid-sized businesses. So in a nutshell, that means I look at your numbers, I make sure that they're absolutely accurate, and I help you stay profitable or improve your profitability.
That's amazing. And how long have you been doing this?
We've been doing this for over a decade, and I'm young, people. It's not really true, but it's been 13 years since we've been doing this, and it just gets better. You love it more. The more you do it, the more you get to experience new entrepreneurs and new jobs.
Isn't it great that not only you get better, your business gets better, and the bigger beneficiary is the client? They're getting more seasoned, more experience, more proven, service provider.
For sure. I definitely think our confidence is way greater now than it was at the beginning. Like, we knew what we were doing, but just the experience, the evolution of the business and the evolution of the team members, the evolution of just absolutely everything that's coming together in your business, it's just got to make you stronger than what it was at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's amazing. I wish I knew, you hear the phrase, if I knew then what I know now,
yes,
things would be different.
And we paid the price for those.
So that's the great advantage for every entrepreneur, every business owner, to make sure that they're working with seasoned, proven professionals, people who know what they're doing, they specialize in what they're doing. When it comes to business, and we were talking a little bit before we connected here in LatProXperience, Liz and I were talking about looking for specialists and how in medicine you're dealing with specialists and sometimes, oftentimes in business, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who does average work on 5 different areas, or you're looking for someone who does amazing, best in class work in one area. Mm-hmm. That's really what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for generalists.
Yeah. And I think that even for business owners that are in that space, you don't necessarily realize that. It's like trial and error. Like, you just got to keep doing it to realize, even as a service provider, oh, that's not really my forte. I know I could do it, but can I do it to the absolute best? Probably not. And recognizing that maybe this is not the best fit for me, and being able to shoo them off to another partner or to somebody else and say, these people are going to do really good for you. So I think in service provider space, you have the combination of being able to say, this is how I'm growing as a business, and then letting your clients know, oh, you think you want me, but you really don't want me. Here's who you really want. And this is the qualifications or the skill set that you're looking for in somebody else.
That's amazing, because that comes with maturity and professional growth. Because when you're starting off, you want everybody.
Oh yeah, you're hungry.
And they want you to wash their car, and they're willing to pay for it. I'm the guy. I'm going to wash your car. Yeah. But at some point, wow, what took for you and for KEM Business Solutions to get to the point that said, look, I'm really honing in what I'm really, really good at. And yes, I can do these things that you're asking me to do, perhaps, or that you need someone to do. And I can probably do that. In fact, I know I can do that, but I cannot do it to the level that somebody else can. And you be better off served by somebody else. What does it take for you to get to that point?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be good, but what took for us was getting into that scenario, the situation, to be able to discover. So, you're working with a client and everything is doable. And then you start finding out, think about it going into an old house, it looks beautiful outside. And then, the plumbing starts jamming up or something you're just digging through and realizing that in the relationship, something isn't working well. It's either the communication, the execution, whatever it is, or the scope of work, what you thought was going to happen is not really what's happening. We get that a lot in our space. Everything is urgent. Everything is absolutely necessary. They need it immediately. Financials need to be done because they needed lending. They need whatever it is they need. And then crickets. You don't hear from them. And so then you have to say, how much am I willing to chase for information before I say, listen, I think you need a different outfit, because what we want to do is help you grow and really be hands-on. And if you're not going to be communicative, if you're not going to be engaging, then we're not the best outfit for you. There are so many other outfits that will do a great job with strictly doing your bookkeeping. And that's great. But when you came to us, these were your pain points. And this is what we're trying to solve. And this is how we're going to be able to get you to that profitability that you want. And if that's not what you're interested at the moment, that's also great too. We're not the best fit. But it took us getting into those situations to start analyzing. And it also took bringing in new team members so that they can, because, as a business owner, and when you're the voice and the face of the company, you're like, absolutely, we can do this. Absolutely. And then when you're training somebody to do it and you're hoping that they execute it, and you're like, okay, well, I need to stay profitable when they're doing this work. What does that look like? Then you start finding out, okay, this scope of work needs to be adjusted. This client's not the fit. And you just start going through like these checks and balances of like, how do we fix this? Like a Rubik's Cube. Like, how do we fix it? What areas do we fix? And is it fixable? I think for a period of time, when you're hungry, like you said, when you start the business, you're just after it all. And so you're like, it's not them, it's me. I need to change my processes. I need to, do this better, do that better, before you realize like, oye, caramba, it's not me. It really is that the framework that I want to deliver and the way I want to deliver my services is in this container, packaged this way for a reason. And if they don't want that packaging, that's great. And so you kind of have to figure out what you want to do next.
Wow, that's amazing. And it doesn't happen immediately, right? To your point, you go through things and you learn through those experiences, and then you realize, what is my goal here? What is my mission? Why did I decide to go into this high risk, high reward situation, right? Entrepreneurship's high risk, high reward. Why did I do this to begin with? Do I want to be all things for all people? And when you start honing in, like, over a decade of trial and error and learning, and as you get more experience, you learn faster, right? But you're still learning. And you realize, do I have the right people in the team to go in the direction that I'm setting the direction, right? As a leader, I'm setting the direction. Do I have the people who are willing, able, and have the hunger to go in that direction with me? And that segues into today's main topic, really, which is team building and culture. And you and I have had conversations in the past about the importance of building culture, developing culture inside of a team, whether your team is a team of 2 or a team of 20. It's critically important that you have develop team culture, communicate team culture, and get people who are that will be aligned with the team culture, because otherwise everybody's going to be doing this on their own. And the one who hurts the most is the client, because they don't know who they're going to get next time to talk to you, to your organization. So tell me about that. Tell me, what is team culture to you?
Yeah. So the way I would interpret it in our company, and the way we've executed it is, it means the way you speak to each other, the way you speak to others, the way you conduct yourself in a space where we're all there, and the way you conduct yourself outside, the way the company treats their employees, the way we reward them, the way we show our appreciation to them, and then the collaboration space that we give them to be able to, be thought leaders, be able to engage, be able to have conversations, creating a safe space where those ideas can come to fruition. Whether they're going to be implemented or executed is a different conversation, but the space that you can nurture the culture of like, let's talk about it, let's discuss it, let's be respectful to ourselves, to others, and to our clients, to our partners. And so for us, I think for me, it started with just being able to execute first, show my appreciation so that they know, corporate environments or even business environments just have such a bad rap about, the way employees are treated and the expectation. We have some generations that really the sense of entitlement really does exist. And then you have, a generation that's just like work more. If you're not working over this set of hours, you're not doing enough. And so how do you bring it together in an industry where for us, we do have deadlines that need to happen and you can't push the deadlines, right? They're like state or federal government issued deadlines. So how do you push the envelope for saying these are the deadlines and these are not negotiable deadlines? So we all have to work together to make these happen. And then also create a space where like, no, I don't want you to work overtime. I don't want you to stay here working later. I do want you to have some, create a balance between your family life and what's happening at work. And I want you to feel like you can disconnect when you go home. And those are not always easy to do.
Sure.
But I try to create an environment. And for us, that's really where we were focused. For us, that culture means all of those things. What's happening when we're in this space, what's happening when we're outside of the space.
So when and I'm just going to ask you because I don't know, right? When you are thinking about what is the culture of KEM Business Solutions, do you look at internally, what it's going to look like internally first, or do you look at how we do business first?
No, I think it still stems from a relationship. So it's definitely a personal way. So it's from the inside out, right? You project and you're happy and you're whatever when it's like, you don't want to feel obligated, right? You hear that story of the kid that's like, sit down. And the kid doesn't want to sit down. And then, he tells his parent, I'm sitting down. But in my mind, I'm standing up, right? And so you don't want to create that dynamic where someone's like, I'm only doing it because you're telling me to do it, but I don't want to do it. And so for us, it's definitely like getting the people's mindset, like so our team members' mindset, so that they're engaged, they understand the vision. And it requires just so much talking. It doesn't require like a behind the scenes Liz, and then that comes and this is what we're going to do. There's all this conversation about, hey, this is my vision. This is how we're going to do it. I think, how do you guys contribute to it? What do you guys think? What areas do you see? So it's definitely a whole lot of engagement and collaboration with the team.
It's not a one and done, right? It's an ongoing situation.
I wish it was a one and done. If somebody can figure out how that works, I would buy it. They'd be a millionaire instantly.
Pill, right? A drink, a little powder that you mix with water.
Yes, exactly.
No, I hear you. But, so how often do you communicate the vision, your vision to the team?
So we have four, the year has 4 quarters. That's not our new framework. That's just,
is that just you? Is that everybody?
Yes. So, in those 4 quarters, we try very hard to engage. And what we have is a professional like day. Think about schools when the teachers had a day off. You didn't go to school, but the teachers had to meet up and kind of work on their agendas and their programs. That's what we do. So every quarter we have one day, and the first half of that day or the first couple hours is to regroup on like how the business has been doing, what new ideas, what new concepts, what feedback we've been receiving or what we've been seeing, and what shifts we need to make in the business or what we need to like really double down on. And then after we do that kind of like brain work, I call it, it's a little more intense, then we kind of go out and have fun. And so the whole day consists of a little bit of work, of that mind work, and a little bit of that, okay, now we just get to enjoy time. And then what we do after that, or a couple times a year, is we try to do an annual planning meeting. That it's really like this is our 2025 or 2026 vision, our annual. But before we do it, it's 2-part. We do an evaluation of what happened the year before and how well we hit those goals for the year, and then what's happening for 2025 or the following year.
So it sounds to me like it's a very collaborative exercise, right? It's not, this is my vision, go do it. But this is our vision for the next 4 quarters. So for the next quarter, and we're all gonna be aware of what the targets are. Mm-hmm. We are all gonna aware what it's gonna. We have clear definition of what it means to hit the target, and what the potential rewards are for hitting that target. And we're not going to wait very long before we review it and see if we're getting closer to it and what adjustments we need to make. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. 1000%. And I think that's really the key is the more you talk to everybody about what it is, everybody wants to feel like they're contributing, right? Like they're valued, like their voice matters. And you want to give them that space because it really does. It's just hey, maybe that's not for this year, or maybe that's not for this quarter, that's for a later quarter, or maybe it's an iteration of that one concept that they, but everyone wants to have a voice, and we want to give them that space to have a voice.
So, yeah, I agree with you. Now, let me see how I phrase this so it doesn't come off a certain way. Everybody wants to have a voice. Everyone wants to have an opinion. That's another way of saying that. But not everyone's willing to do the work that it will take to accomplish that idea. So how do you handle that? How do you, if in my experience, you go into the room, you get 6 people in the room with you. We're all excited. We're looking at very grandiose things. We're looking at aspirational goals. We're looking at today's targets, this month's targets, this year's targets, and aspirational 5 years down the road, perhaps something like that. And people are excited. There's a high level of excitement, and there's buy-in. Now, that's the easy part, relatively speaking. Now we got to execute that. From saying it to doing it, very wide space, right? Very wide space. So how do you get people? I shouldn't say that. How do you get people? That's not the point. How do you create a culture where your teammates say, I love it, I want it, and I'm ready to do this with you?
So for us, it starts at the annual planning meeting where we're going, because, everybody has to provide their own insight and their own vision for what they see in the department and how they see.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of their responsibility. Before I even share my vision, I want to know what they're going in and what they're thinking or needs to lead, because you got to get them, to flex that muscle.
Sure.
And so at the annual planning meeting, there's here's what didn't go well. Here's what really went well. And here's what I think we should incorporate moving forward. And so when we see those, and they're supposed to hand it in early enough that when we put it all together, we can say, this is so great that these were your ideas for 2025, because they align with what I see, because I'm looking at it then on a global level, not just a department level.
Exactly.
And so I can say this supports this and this supports this. Now we try very hard to not have 10 goals for the year or 10 initiatives for the year. So we are very much a 3 to 5 initiatives tops for the year. And then every quarter we say, this is what needs to happen this quarter. This is what needs to happen in January. This is what needs to happen in February. And this is what needs to happen. And you own this task, and you own this task, and you own this task. And this is how we're going to be able to get to the end of the year and feel like we accomplished everything that we set forth.
That's amazing. I wish more people would do that. You're in the top 0.5% of businesses in our size, right? Under $50 million a year. Just say that. That actually does this. And so
I didn't always do it. So I will say that it's
a process, right? You don't wake up one day and say, oh, this is it right here. It's evolution, right? It's an evolutionary process. So you let me just kind of recap, just make sure that I understand it, right? You have a plan, do, review type situation, right? You set up the targets. Everyone sets up the targets individually based on their area of focus inside of KEM Business Solutions. You have a global view, of course, as the owner and operator of this ship, right? And you have team members that have certain levels of responsibility for certain areas. You get together once a year to map out the vision for the next 12 months, and regularly. So you, during those sessions, that initial session, you do some editing, right? Because you say, I don't want 30 things. I think we can accomplish X, and that's what's going to be our focus. Now that we agree as a team, right? Not you, but as a team, as an organization, you agree on what the imperatives are for the following year. Then you start breaking it down in executable, more executable targets by month, by quarter, by area. Is that do I track you?
Yep, that's exactly how we try to do it.
Okay, so let's assume that you have that mapped out for the next 12 months. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows what the opportunities are and what the challenges are. Let's assume that everybody bought into that already. Mm-hmm. Do you have a process of accountability along the way? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think it depends. Certain initiatives have more accountability than others. And so if we have those that are more accountabilities, those meetings tend to have more frequently. It might be a weekly regroup. It might be a more monthly regroup that's happening specifically to make sure that we're on target or to make any shifts if necessary or any adjustments. So sometimes we have this great initiative and we're like all buying in and we're like so super excited. And then something like a pandemic happens, right? Well, that was not in anybody's bingo card for the year. And so we go back and we have to say, okay, great. Well, how is this idea even feasible anymore? And so you end up having to invest a little bit more time in those. So for some of those initiatives, we have the weekly check-in, we have a monthly check-in, but we still hold, like pretty closely to those initiatives to see. And then on the quarter one, that's a bit more global. So for us in our industry, Januaries are really tough, right? Because there's so many deadlines. So when we say that our calendar year, although we follow the regular calendar year of January 1st to December 31st, like everybody else, our real year starts with like April 1st. So we have a shift on the dynamic of when we're going to go all in. So we're like survivor mode in like January through March, because that's when like a lot of work is due. And so we give ourselves like, hey, we're going to launch this part of the task or any of the new initiatives, but we're not going to go completely all in. We're going to just lay the groundwork and start laying bricks essentially. And then when we go into like our period of like that second quarter, that's when we go in and we're like, okay, boom, this is what needs to happen. Because again, we're trying to create a space where the people or our team members are not overwhelmed by what we're trying to accomplish. And so if we've got a heavy season of a lot of client work and a lot of conversations and we're going to set ourselves up for failure if we're like doing this, because we're going to get burnt out. We're going to reach that first quarter and we're not going to want to know anything. We're not going to want to do anything. And so we try very hard to look at our calendar specifically, and this would be what anybody would do based on our ebbs and flows in our business, to say, this is when we go all in and when we need to make a huge investment in time, money, resources, everything. And then this is when we're managing and looking. And this is when we're like getting quotes and getting proposals and inviting other partners that can help us get our vision executed and successfully, go to market or launch.
That's awesome. That again, top 0.5% of business owners do this. And that's another reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you again in this platform, so other entrepreneurs and business owners can start thinking about this. This is what it takes to build an organization with the right people, with the right team members, with the right culture that will sustain growth over a long period of time.
Yeah, it's tiresome though. I'm going to say it's not the most glamorous part of the job. Sometimes it is, like the ideation part of it is like excited, because who's not excited for the idea of like, I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to work out and I'm going to eat healthy, whatever. And then the moment it comes to execution, you're like, I am so not going to wake up. And so it's the same kind of concept, or I'm tired. I want to just watch Netflix. I don't want to go that extra mile. And so there's a lot of, I think, not glamorous piece and that, and no, it's not a visible or immediate reward in that moment.
For sure. So that's a very long term.
Yes. So you're pushing yourself and you know that the end is great, but for a minute you're just like in the darkness. Like there's light at the end of the tunnel, but you've already left the other side and you're at the point where you're like, now you got to push forward.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels lonely. And sometimes when you're holding the team accountable because they've missed some of the marks, I don't like being the bad guy, And so there's a little bit of like, oh my goodness, how much of this, like, let me evaluate before I tell them they didn't hit their mark. Did we do something? Did something happen in the business? Did something? And so there's a whole lot of like, let me make sure that we really did set them up for success before I go have that conversation of like, now you have to do a bit more work or push yourself a bit harder because we need to make up lost ground.
You said a lot of great things there, because I don't want it to be missed. It's lonely. Yes, absolutely, it's lonely, especially when you're leading. It's lonely because you're looking forward. You're never looking backwards, and your team is following you. And if you do this often enough, what happens? You confuse your team. What, does Liz know where she's going? Why is she looking back here? So they're not going to come out and say this, but that's what's going inside a person's mind, right? So absolutely, it's lonely. So how do you? There's like three questions that pop into my mind based on what you just said. You said addressing the loneliness piece, the loneliness of the role at times, your role as a leader. How do you overcome that? Who do you talk to? Do you get into spaces where there are other people, other women entrepreneurs, other men entrepreneurs, whoever, entrepreneurs that are going into similar situations so you can get support and guidance?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So it took me a while to build, to understand that part of it. Because, you go to networking events and you're like, it's like a facade, right? You have to look good. You have to present yourself a certain way, speak a certain way, and like give this whole like persona. And in the inside, you're like, what the frick is going on? Like, whatever. And so when I started like really searching, so first I searched for women in business and like a community of like, I want people to understand this, because if your spouse is not necessarily a business owner or an entrepreneur, yeah, they're going to let you listen, they're going to vent, and they're going to give you advice and encouragement, but they're not going to really understand how your brain is going through a bajillion things at all times. You go on a cruise and all of a sudden you have a bunch of ideas because your brain is just thinking differently, right? You don't get to just leave and let it be. And so I started with women in business, sort of get a little, and then I said I wanted somebody in my actual space in accounting. And so then I found a community that was accountants and that understood that space, and we could provide encouragement and support and also just share ideas of what's happening and ways to improve. And then I like just the overall networking of like, okay, these are people that I like to just go hang out with. I'm learning business with. I get to that just fall in the like, hey, we met other entrepreneurs or we met other business people, and they're great people. And then I actually hired a therapist.
Sure.
And so that was like amazing because I could vent to her my frustrations. And then she could say, well, when did you clarify? And so she's made me a better communicator because, sometimes we say one sentence and we expect everybody to understand what that sentence means, right? Like all that sentence is supposed to encompass. And she's like, but you didn't say that though. And I said, well, no, but it's it's implied. And she was like, right, but you didn't say it. And so it became one of these like, okay, well, great. How do I get better about communicating and how do I get better? So the therapist became like this outlet for me. And I do, I think, a session a month. If things are a little dicey, I might bump it up. But that's helped in just having the outlet of like, I'm frustrated because X, Y, Z. And then to figure out whether that frustration is really a legitimate frustration and how to fix it, or if it's more internalized and like, okay, here's your tools to be better.
That's amazing. Again, top 1.5%. I watch kind of a sidebar. I'm a huge fan of the show Billions. I don't know if you saw that or not. Showtime, right? It was in Showtime.
I love that show.
And they don't call it a therapist, but they have a performance coach.
Yes.
And it's in-house because everybody in there is on the edge of jumping out of a window. Yeah. So constantly. So, I see that and I'm going, for someone like me who is not grown up in a culture of therapy is part of life. And I'm a proponent. I'm just not a user, right? That it just gives me another window into that space, how it can work for a lot of different people. So amazing that you're doing. So